Hello, GWOG Gamer here, bringing my first review, funnily enough, as we've already done things like reactions, role-plays and games. So yeah, I'm bringing my first review, and it is Detective Pikachu. First, couple of things. Warning, if this video will feature spoilers for Detective Pikachu. If you have not watched the film, turn it off now, if you do not want to be spoiled. Second of all, basically how this is going to work is I'm going to go through the the film's story, its characters, things like its visuals, its cinematography, and then any extras, and then I'll say sort of what I really liked about it, any bad bits, and I will then give it a score out of 10. And is it as good as everyone says it is? As there aren't too many reviews of Detective Pikachu out there. I know Shafrilla's Productions has done one, and I'm pretty sure, and I know AVGN has also done one as well. And who knows, probably some others have. And I'm pretty sure the Anime Man has done one as well. So if you want to check their reviews out, but here's mine. So I'm very much going to start going into the plot now. You'll just have to be looking at Detective Pikachu with a magnifying glass for a bit. So the story basically starts. I was making notes whilst watching the film back on Saturday. The film basically starts like Mewtwo, the first Pokemon movie does. We've got Mewtwo, he's being experimented on, and then things are out of control. He breaks out of his tank, he then destroys the lab and killing everybody inside. A car, an unlocked car, is then driving away from the lab. Mewtwo then chases after the car, and it seemingly gets blown up in flames. And straight away, it's already as if Mewtwo's going to be the villain of this film, which in a way makes it seem like a really bad version of Pokemon the first movie. Note, I have not played the Detective Pikachu game, so I'm going to be... I'm not too full up on its story. We then are welcomed into our first two characters. We meet Jack, I think. Jack and Tim. Tim Goodman, who's the main character. And what you'll notice about Tim already is that his skin colour is different to how he's portrayed in the games. Now, I know this seems like a very PC move, but I'm going to cover that in character sections. So we meet these guys, and they're in the fields trying to catch a Cubone. And I like how they make a reference of the theories that Cubone is actually the baby in Kangaskhan's pouch. I like how they make a reference to that. Saying that it wears the skull of its dead mother, which I know is literally just saying it's Pokédex entry, but I think it's a pretty fun reference. There are quite a few nice references in here that I did catch upon whilst watching the film. And we see Tim, he tries to catch the Cubone, it gets out of the Pokeball. Sorry, there's a window open, and there's a road and a motorbike just took off, because it's actually quite sunny outside right now. I'm inside. Otherwise, back to the review, and he fails to catch it and the Cubone chases after him. Tim is actually an insurance person, and he's actually heading over to Rhyme City. I actually thought it was Grime City for a time. I like the scene where he's on the train with his, he hasn't actually got a Pokemon, and there's just a Lickitung. And I'll get the Pokemon themselves later. And we reveal that his father wanted him to come to Rhyme City because he was a real Pokemon enthusiast, and he wanted to actually go to Sinnoh on a train, but because his mother died, spoilers, he decided otherwise, and his father tried to make one of his rooms look like his old childhood room. And yeah. So once he gets in the Rhyme City, we're revealed to our next character, Howard Clifford, who is totally not the villain, who has made Rhyme City. It's revealed that there are no Pokemon battles, no Pokeballs, no wild Pokemon, people just live in harmony with their Pokemon. So already he seems a little bit suspicious already. He seems like this really peaceful guy. He's played by Bill Nighy, who has played various characters in various films, from Dylan in the Magic Roundabout to films like Arthur Christmas and Valkyrie, which is a World War II film, which I recommend you check it out. It's also got Tom Cruise in it. It's like a lot, even though I'm reading this off some notes. So Tim, he is merely just going through the town, and meets another character, Yoshida, who tells him about his father and how he was supposedly killed due to the Mewtwo experiment. That's basically what Mewtwo is. No, he's an experiment. As far as we know, we also know Yoshida has a pet Snubbull. I suppose there's always a fun little interaction with Snubbull. And he then goes off, takes the keys, and heads back to his father's apartment. This is when we meet our secondary character, Lucy, who is she's a very minor reporter with a Psyduck, which is pretty interesting. He's also a pretty interesting character as well, I find. Quite an independent character, but we'll get onto that in characters. So he goes off into the room, and then, of course, after searching through, looking through his room, I like how there's a poster with a Blastoise on, saying Cerulean Arena. And there's also ones like the Articuno vs Steelix poster. Those are really cool little details. And then, of course, we then meet Detective Pikachu, which the film is, of course, named after. And later, well, a little later after that little encounter with Tim threatening to shoot him with a stapler, which I think is just kind of, it is hilarious, is what it is. And then some Apom, who are nearby, then just some weird purple gas and basically go demon nightmare fuel, which I'm pretty sure scared some of the kids watching this. There were quite a lot of young kids watching this, to be honest, with their parents. And, yeah. And so they attack Tim and Pikachu, but they are able to, after running away and going through a rubbish chute, because seemingly that's just a running gag with films. Characters always have to go through things like laundry chutes or rubbish chutes. I mean, you've seen it in things like Scooby-Doo and John English Reborn. There's a section like that. And then the Apom go back to being normal again. And so we have a nice scene with Pikachu and Tim just in a coffee shop, and Tim's literally just trying to... He's still in bewilderment that this Pikachu can speak human language. Yeah, I'm surprised no one reacts that way to Meowth from the Pokemon anime. And we had a little scene prior where basically the humans, even though Pikachu speaks human language, Pikachu just speaks Pika. He can't... To normal people, Pikachu just speaks like any other Pokemon, but to Tim, he speaks human language, which is unique, I guess. But Pokemon talking is not alien to us. I mean, Pokemon like Mewtwo, I'm pretty sure Deoxys can also speak English, along with Meowth as well, Hooper as well. So Pokemon speaking English is not really a new thing to us at all. If you've watched the anime, trust me, it's not alien to us at all. So it's a kind of a... It's pretty old and it's kind of worn a bit thin, I feel. And we meet up with... I think we meet up with Lucy again. Bear in mind, my mind's a little rusty. We also get a small scene with a little bit Jigglypuff, who looks pretty adorable in this film, I will say that. Though I think there is one Pokemon that's more adorable than Jigglypuff. And so, we then move on to where Pikachu is literally just going through Harry Goodman, who is Tim's father's name. Just go through that, and it just literally just going through his room, and it's just all these old cases of his, and we then discover that there's a Pokemon parade going on the next day. We then introduced to Howard's son Roger at a sort of a filming scene, and we obviously know that there's a rocky relationship between the two, as apparently Roger isn't a big fan of Pokemon compared to Howard, who suffered with some kind of disease, but he was able to overcome it and has now created Rhyme City. So it's obvious that he was inspired by Pokemon evolution, how weak Pokemon like Magikarp, can become really strong Pokemon, like Gyarados. And I like how we have the little scene on the side where the cameraman just turns into a Ditto. We also have some more interactions between Lucy and Tim, which is pretty funny. And we then segue into our next section, where they end up going to the docks, where we have the funny interaction with Mr. Mime, where they literally have to cope with Mr. Mime's miming, as apparently Harry was at the docks due to this supposed gas that makes Pokemon go crazy. And it's pretty funny literally having to deal with Mr. Mime's miming acts. It is really funny. And how they're sort of able to outsmart him by threatening to set him on fire. Kind of dark humour like that. And then Mr. Mime's sort of able to outwit them as well. It's pretty funny. Overall, it's a really funny interaction scene that's probably one of the best in the film. We then segue into our next section with the underground battles, as obviously some trainers aren't going to be too happy that they can't battle their Pokemon, so they have an underground section where we have a battle against Gengar and Blastoise. And to reveal that Pikachu once had a battle here not too long ago before the Mewtwo accident, and he beat a Charizard, and this weird trainer guy basically just challenges him to a rematch against his Charizard. And he has a whole arsenal of this weird purple gas, and he gives it to his Charizard, and we basically have just a full montage of Pikachu just trying to avoid Charizard's attacks. Charizard looks pretty cool, for a start, I will say that, and Pikachu cannot make attacks. And I think this is a pretty good section showing Tim's knowledge of Pokemon. He basically says, Pikachu suggested attacks. He says Quick Attack, Electro Ball, I think Discharge is what I said, and Volt Tackle. Funnily enough, I'm pretty sure all those moves bar Discharge are ones that Ash's Pikachu has been able to know. And the only two that Ash's Pikachu forgot Volt Tackle conveniently for Electro Ball. Which is kind of a bad move, but we're not here to diss Ash's decisions in Pokemon Black and White. Moving on, and we then, and basically, the guy just ends up smashing all of his little canister thingies, causing everyone else's Pokemon to go crazy. And even Magikarp can go crazy, though it hardly can't, as it's apparently the weakest Pokemon in this universe. And it then evolves into Gyarados, as apparently it just needs one little push to evolve. I suppose Magikarp does only evolve at level 20. It evolves into Gyarados, and then everything sort of wears off, the gas wears off. And then they basically interrogate Charizard's trainer as to where he got all these serums from, if you will. And then we move on to our next scene where we're at a lab with Lucy and Tim, along with Psyduck and Pikachu. We had a rather interesting sequence where they're in a G-Wiz, and they can't let Psyduck get too stressed, otherwise he will basically become the equivalent to Thanos or Goku. So yeah, the real fight at the end of Endgame should actually be Psyduck versus Thanos, not whoever faces him, because I've never watched Endgame and I never intend to. Yes. So they go into this old lab, and the lab set looks really good. They reveal that they are experimenting on Pokemon like Greninja and Torterra. Which is pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure revealed beforehand by Howard, who's seemingly now acting as some kind of ally to Tim, giving him more of an insight into Harry's supposed death, though Tim believes that he's not dead since Pikachu was able to survive, as he was with Harry the entire time, as Pikachu is Harry's partner Pokemon, if you will. And it's revealed that Mewtwo wasn't the reason why Harry supposedly died. So Howard just gives Tim a push in the right direction as such. We then reveal more through these sort of hologram things. It's revealed that the R serum, which is what it's called, if anything I thought the R might make it have something to do with Team Rocket, the R serum was actually made using Mewtwo, funnily enough. And then we segue into a section where the Greninja have captured Lucy and a Psyduck, and they're basically having to run away from the Greninja in the lab, which kind of, it gave me a very similar feel to Portal, or Metroid even. It's got a very, like I say, a Portal or Metroid atmosphere to it, which I quite like, and it's quite fitting. I'm sorry that you've had to spend 13.5 minutes literally just looking at Pikachu. But anyways, once I finish the story bit, and they then are able to get outside, away from the Greninja, because Psyduck's able to use psychic powers, and it's then revealed that the Torterra they're experimenting on are now basically the equivalent to massive islands, and they're able to survive, and they're able to head back. But Pikachu is heavily injured, and we then meet Bulbasaur, who's arguably the cutest Pokemon in this film, by my opinion. And they then lead Tim and Pikachu along with Morilol, which I literally had someone in the audience that asked, who are they, or what's that? There's also some Comfey that makes some little cameos. And then he's placed on an altar, and then Mewtwo appears, and Mewtwo's able to speak on his own. And basically just gives Pikachu's memories back. Because basically after the crash, Mewtwo erased Pikachu's memories, because Mewtwo has that power. And then we have a little scene where they're just sort of disconnected from each other, and Pikachu sings the original Pokemon intro, which I thought was it's like they had to put some reference into the anime, and I think that was a previous reference to the anime opening earlier on in the film, Though I've probably forgotten, so tell me if I forget anything. And then we have a scene with Roger, just smirking at them, and we then cut to the next day with the Pokemon parade with all the balloons, and Tim, along with Pikachu, basically rushing over to Clifford's office, and then seemingly Clifford has now hooked himself up to Mewtwo, as Mewtwo's now been stolen by Roger. As then revealed, Howard is actually the villain. Bum bum bum! Like, we totally did not see that coming. Though, I mean, it did throw me off for a little bit. He fuses himself with Mewtwo, which is basically every single God of War fan's fantasy to fuse himself with a Pokemon, and what he's going to do is release all the Argas and basically fuse people with their Pokemon. Because apparently this works when the Pokemon have the Argas ingested into them. When they inhale this, it's actually a gas, but it's still called a serum, as if it's a liquid. I feel like this sort of thing, what it actually does is basically gives them Mewtwo's DNA, so it gives them a hint of it, which is possibly a hint towards the Berserk gene item from Generation 2, which when used, it supposedly had the DNA of Mewtwo and just buffed a Pokemon's attack, though it made them confused. Which I think is probably a reference to that item. That item only appeared in Gen 2 as well. It's revealed that Harry was the one who was assigned to find Mewtwo from the Kanto region, so it escaped from the Kanto region, so it was obviously the events from the Kanto region happened, and that, you know, Team Rocket and whatnot, that everything happened. And it's also revealed that Mewtwo was good. He's a good guy, but he's maybe just forced to work with the bad guys. Yeah, and they basically fuse other people with their Pokemon, so they can now talk. And then we have a brilliant fight where Pikachu has to ride on a Pidgeot and is running away from Howard Mewtwo, as I'll call him. And Tim, on the other hand, is still stuck in his office, having to... Basically, he's having to deal with... I can't remember entirely, but he's basically got to deal with Ditto, who is also Howard's sexy internal person with the high heel boots. And is also able to turn into Pokemon, and also Lucy. And it's also revealed that Roger was actually a good guy, and he was captured, and the Roger we saw that captured Mewtwo was actually just Ditto. Which it makes sense, as Ditto can't copy Pokemon's eyes, or people's eyes, which is a reference to its first appearance in the anime, which once again, I really like, making use of Pokemon's characteristics. Same with characters like Mr. Mime. And then we basically get a one-on-one showdown with Pikachu using Volt Tackle against Mewtwo. And we are then able to separate everybody from their Pokemon, and everyone is back to normal, and Howard is arrested. And in the end, Lucy just doesn't even leave Tim, she just gets up on a high position, thanks to Roger, who is aware of Lucy's knowledge of the subject, of the whole R serum and whatnot. There we go. And Tim, he basically decides to stay, as it's then revealed that what happened to the trainers just is basically what happened to Harry and Pikachu. Pikachu was just a normal Pikachu, and then they're getting fused with Harry, and then they are unfused, and we get to see Ryan Reynolds in person, who is totally unconvincing as a supposedly 21-year-old person's father, and the credits roll, and the credits are really nice about showing the characters and what they were like in the games. So as far as story is concerned, I mean, it starts off basically just like Pokemon the first movie. I feel like Mewtwo is kind of shoved in here as some form of antagonistic threat, and it doesn't really impress me, to be honest. The story is at least interesting, an interesting concept, bear in mind for someone who never played Detective Pikachu, because it feels more like, to me, a bit of a cash-in. But otherwise, I feel like the story is a solid 7 out of 10, maybe 6.5 on a bad day. So, story's a really good idea. I like the whole concept with the R Serum, Rhyme City, and very much the characters' backstories as well, but we'll get onto the characters next, once I just click on characters. So, otherwise, that is the story. We'll then move on to characters. And first of all, I'm going to start with Tim. I like Tim as a protagonist. It's a bit dark, the picture, so I can't really see it very well. But I like Tim. I like him. We don't even know his name for quite a bit. But he's a pretty interesting character. How, yeah, his mother died, but then again, quite a lot of edgy anime characters have had their mothers or family die. But he doesn't come off as being too edgy. I feel he doesn't feel too bland, and I mean, he very much wanted to become a Pokemon master, but due to issues with his family, I guess it's quite a modern thing they're taking with the idea of divorce and family loss. It shows that they're sort of keeping up with the times, which is quite nice. And not sticking to being a bit of a traditional stick in the mud as such. And I like that. I really like the scene where he's talking with crying Pikachu, which is down in the left-hand side. He can sort of... He's never got like a funny scene or whatnot. He's not a particular funny character, I would say. He's quite a serious character, which is what I quite like. I'm too used to fairly bland and happy anime protagonists because I'm too used to characters like Lucia or characters like that, kind of two-dimensional characters. This guy feels far more 3D to me, but that's probably because I watch too much anime and stuff like that. Too simple of shows for something as complex as this. Hell, there are even people that kids leaving this because it was actually kind of dark. It's far more mature than what Pokemon I think has become today, but that's a subject for another time. So Tim, otherwise, for me, is a very good character, in my opinion. And I think he complements Pikachu well. Lucy, as a sort of a side protagonist, was also pretty good. She's an independent character she's got energy, she's serious. And I like that. I like how they've got chemistry, but I don't like how they don't force it down you, as such. They keep it fairly... I like how Tim does basically say in the fight against... And it's the Ditto version of her that he is attracted to her, but they never force it down. If there was a Detective Pikachu 2, which I highly doubt there would be, but I mean this film is pretty successful, if there was, I think they probably would try and develop that chemistry together, but otherwise, I think these two are pretty good characters. Pretty nice main protagonist characters. Pikachu, I'm going to say... Yeah, no, Pokemon. I think Pikachu, being the main protagonist, I think Pikachu was definitely... He appeals to the kids, I think, because... I mean, his humour, the jokes... I mean, he's sort of trying to be this edgy cop, drinking coffee and whatnot. But he's also kind of fun, and I like the scene where he's trying to use an electric attack against Charizard, who was pictured in the bottom left. But he actually kind of looks like he's trying to do a poop. It looks like he's constipated. Constipated Pikachu. I think Pikachu is pretty interesting, and he does have a pretty interesting... I want to say Pikachu has character development, but I more want to say Tim has character development, if anything. And Pikachu, he doesn't really go many places, really. He sort of stays the same as he started. A kind of humorous, but also with a serious and emotional touch. In a way, a bit similar to Tim, but without the humour. Howard, he's kind of poor as a villain. Bill Nye is a great actor. He really does seem like he's into the role. I mean, I've also watched him in Valkyrie and the Magic Roundabout, and those are two completely different films from one another. And to see him in Detective Pikachu is kind of a bit of a middle ground. As a villain, he feels a bit uncompelling to me. He doesn't feel that interesting. And that's pretty much it. Yoshida, I barely got anything to say, or even anything about Rogers. He really has no screen time at all. And guys like Jack as well, who literally just after the first bit of the movie with the Cubone, he just leaves. I also like how when Tim is hanging on the edge of the building, Ditto transforms into a Cubone to try and knock him off as a sort of a form of revenge. I'll move on to visuals and whatnot. The Pokemon look really great in this film. I mean, we got Ambipom literally at the back of my finger. About literally looking demonic. I mean, it even scared me. It looks like he could fit into Alien. But Charizard looks pretty cool. Bulbasaur is adorable. Pikachu's also pretty adorable, and so is Jigglypuff. The Pokemon look really good in this film. They've really outdone themselves, and it basically makes the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which already looked like rubbish, look even more rubbish. Expect a review of that sometime in the future when that comes out. I felt the colour palette though was a bit washed out. I mean, it wasn't bursting with colour, but I think that was never its intention to be bursting with colour. If someone was bursting with colour, I think it probably would make it even more childlike, which I think this film was not trying to go for. This was trying to be a bit more serious. As we haven't really had serious Pokemon themes for years, really, probably since the end of the X and Y series, which I think the X and Y series more became shonen, and Sun and Moon's just a bit too happy-go-lucky, I think, which is probably why Pokemon's attracted a lot of younger fans these days, and it's probably why people probably walked out on this film. The Mewtwo vs Pikachu fight was great. It was beautiful. The whole cinematography, the camera angles, literally the stakes, the camera angles, the editing as well was really good. These Pokemon don't look choppily edited. They look like they can naturally fit in to our society and our world. World building, well, we're only really into the hometown as such and Rhyme City, which looks really great. I like how it's sort of got elements of New York City in it, which I'm pretty sure is probably what it's more supposed to be based on, elements of America. I love the backstreet elements, like the scene with Tim and Pikachu at night. I like how that's got all that. Sorry, my nose. That's got a bit of an Asian feel to it. I really like the contrasting locations, like the docks, the train station. All of it, it's really good looking. The lab is really great as well. It's a really great set. It looks pretty much like it could fit into Portal or Metroid. It's got a really eerie and creepy feel to it, but it looks amazing, and I think they really outdid themselves with the sets. I think even the hometown looks really good. There's a generally nails that early, like that pallet town feel to it, which I really like. Yeah, that's very much what I have to say. And any extra bits? I like when Pancham appears. He is quite early on to the film at the train station. They play accordion music, which is perhaps a reference to Generation 6, the Kalos region being loosely based on France. I mean, we've got the Nightmare A-Palms and the set designs. I kind of want to think the Pikachu rubbing Psyduck's feet is a foot fetish. I mean, the Torterras looked really cool, the giant Torterras, and even Greninja was used as more like a really creepy alien type character, which is a bit, I mean, I guess it's more reflecting its dark typing. The credits were really cool as well, and I generally did stick to watch them, as I don't really watch credits. But with certain films, I generally do stick to watch the credits. Films like Detective Pikachu, for example, the Madagascar 2 credits were also quite an interesting one as well. Although I went back to watch that film not too long ago, and I really like those credits as well. I normally don't stick, but these are a couple of examples. I mean, even going back to it, the Pikachu vs Charizard fight was pretty cool. It was basically Pikachu versus Mewtwo, but on a bit of a smaller scale. And now I'm going to go into what I liked and didn't like. So here's how I'm going to put it. What I really liked about the film, I really liked its characters. Tim and Lucy are really good characters, and so is Pikachu. I really liked the visuals. The sets were really cool. The Pokemon looked great. They didn't look cheap. They didn't look choppy. They were really great. So visuals and characters are really great. The story is pretty good and a neat concept. But now we're going to segue into more of my bad points with this film. The plot is a double-edged sword with me. The inclusion of Mewtwo feels a bit choppy to me. It feels like, yeah, we're just going to put Mewtwo in here because Mewtwo. And I get it, Mewtwo's a really popular and really famous Pokemon because of the first movie. But even then, I feel like Pokemon like Zygarde or Kieran or heck, even Pokemon like Lugia, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Darkrai, they could all pretty much fit Mewtwo's role in the film or do something similar. Like Darkrai, like for example, could practically do what Mewtwo could do and do so much more. Like causing people to become untrustworthy of their Pokemon by giving them bad dreams, which is maybe why they are a little bit, I wouldn't say uneasy around Pokemon. This is maybe why they don't have Pokemon battles. Or, for example, they could sort of, well, like perhaps Kyogre maybe. You could sort of, Howard could use Kyogre or Groudon even to cause those giant storms. Almost to essentially, which would be kind of weird to destroy your own man-made city. Yeah, but that could be pretty cool. I mean, he could sort of anger Rayquaza with the underground battles, and make sort of the regular people who don't do the underground battles not want to battle even more, fearing Rayquaza's wrath, if you know what I mean. Or even Zygarde. I'll get a Zygarde. God, if people destroy the ecosystem, Zygarde will go and attack them. I mean, that's even saying it's Pokedex entries. So they could have done something with that. As I think Zygarde could have been more of an independent villain, rather than focusing with Howard instead. Howard's not a good villain, in my opinion. I mean, it switches back, it's like trying to fake it. It's like, Roger's the villain. But it's like, no, Howard's the villain. And it just, in a blink of an eye, it's like, yep, I'm the villain now. I think Ryan's a bit unconvincing as Tim's dad. He just looks too young. He looks like he's in his 30s, and Tim's 21. I know he's probably, realistically, as far as the story's concerned, in his 40s, or hell, even his 50s. But it just isn't it's just an unconvincing job. Now, I know what you're saying back to Howard. What I said to Howard. But Jiru are two of your favourite villains. One is a surprise villain, and one's a villain who barely does anything. Being Electra and Gaito, respectively. I was going to put Lion on here, but I said otherwise, and here's what I'm going to explain why. The reason why I like Electra more is because she does a far more convincing job. As I mean, she practically comes off as the main Bond girl of the film for a good chunk of it, and then it's like, it's not so much a surprise, it's more like, ahaha, I'm the villain. It's more like that, it more comes off a bit more subtly, if you get what I mean. And I guess you could say, well, you're trying to compare a Bond film that's 20 years old to a brand new Detective Pikachu film. That's actually how old the world is not enough is. But films are films, and Electra does a far more convincing job as a surprise villain. She doesn't come off as if she's going to be the villain at all. I very much thought like Howard was more like Lord Business from the Lego movie. Extremely successful business person who's made this... Well, Lord Business didn't make Bricksburg. He has this city completely under control, and it's like secretly he's going to cause pain and harm. But Electra never came off as that. At all. Which made her reveal as a villain far more interesting and far more surprising. Gaito as well. Gaito is far better from a character perspective. He's quite a tragic villain. Left alone at the bottom of the sea, you can kind of feel sorry for him and kind of... I was going to say sympathise with his actions, but you probably couldn't sympathise with a madman trying to destroy the ocean and the world with one castle and a whole lot of rage, but you get the idea. Gaito is very triggered. But Gaito's a far more better villain from a character perspective as well. He's far... Yeah, I know, he barely does anything at all until right at the end of the series, but he's got a far better character. He's vulnerable for a start. He's vulnerable, yet despite being the supposed this supposed king, he's also got this very weak side to him, as we can see with his sections with Sarah several times in the show. And he also comes off as a complete madman right at the end, where he's literally just laughing his head off, just destroying everything. And I guess it shows more of his path to madness. Starting as a fairly calm, yet occasionally a bit angry or a bit stubborn, and then just going completely, he wants to destroy everything. I've always said Gaito is my favourite villain out of any media source. Not quite favourite character, but he's certainly number 2 in that respect, number 3. And Gaito is far better from a story perspective, and Electra is far better from a performance perspective as well. So that's kind of why I prefer these two. These are two... Electra's a far better example to do a surprise villain, and Gaito is a far better villain for someone who does barely anything right until the end of the story. Whereas when Gaito's going to do it, he goes all out. I mean, his castle is literally just crumbling because of his anger. And Gato does a far better, they do far better compelling versions of what Howard does. But otherwise, aside from these little niggles, I feel like, that came up as a bit weird, I'm going to rate this film an 8.5 out of 10. The only problems are, Ryan Reynolds is a bit too young for the role of some guy's dad, and Howard's not that good of a villain. Otherwise, and there's one section where they fall off a tree, which is kind of poorly edited. But otherwise, everything else, visuals, story, characters, brilliant. I hope you guys enjoyed this first review. I know this video is very long, but there's quite a lot of things to go into detail about. I hope you guys enjoyed this film. I'll put timestamps in, and there are timestamps in the description to know where to go. Hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you next time for the next video. Goodbye.